figure it out.
Thanks. Welcome, everybody. I don't think we will have a long meeting tonight. So if you have rice cooking, we might get back in time. Let's see. Thanks for being flexible on the time change. Sorry about that. There were just a lot of things coming together that didn't make that night possible. So thanks for that flexibility. Next meeting will be, is it December 1st or something? Yeah, December 1st. So we'll have to hold to that because it's now it'll be a public meeting, and we'll meet in person at the Rockport Town Hall. That's so that we can vote about this meeting remotely thing. I'll send a reminder about that, but just housekeeping. Also in the housekeeping area, the Zoom link that you're working with now, and I just emailed it, it's the same Zoom, it's going to be the same Zoom link every month. So if you want to write it down on a sticky note and stick it on your computer, Helen, along with all the other stickies, it'll be right there in front of you, Richard. Yeah, right. Yeah. Where's there room for another sticky? Okay.
Apologies.
It's okay. All right. Any comments on the minutes from October? Any corrections? Yeah, could do that. Yeah. Last chance. Any objections to accepting it as written then? And the toss-up question, Linda, what's the watermark?
The watermark?
In the minutes?
The watermark.
Come on, Linda. I spend hours working on these things.
You mean the jack-o'-lanterns?
Yes! Yes. All right.
Nicely done.
All right. Any objections to passing them as written then? Great. Thank you. Moving on. I told you this is going to go fast. Any Rockport prospects for the committee? Somewhat related. There is a little email going around asking the towns to formally update the committees in terms of membership and get Will on formally too. So I think it might actually happen this next month. Should be on the agenda soon with the select board, which is cool. Next thing is, please do, I asked John Titus whether he'd be interested to rejoin because he's in a different phase of his life. He didn't respond, but I'll ask him again. Do you remember John? Okay. Helen, you don't remember John?
I have a very bad memory for faces and names. So if I saw him, I might recognize him, but I would have no idea who he was.
Okay. All right. I don't have an update on the Maritime Farms projects, Maritime Farms Sure Tail project, but they are still listed I don't know if you remember the last time we went through this. They're listed on the project list for Camden to be started next year or fall this year. So it looks like it's going to be next year. The Riverwalk, I have no updates that I can think of. Anything on Route 90? Any updates?
No, I don't have any updates at all to speak of. I have not heard back from Patrick, but we did get an email from Diane, Helen, and Margot and Heidi. You probably got it too, for a scheduled meeting, which I know nothing about. Maybe you all know something about it, but I indicated my preference for times. So I don't know what the subject is about, but it has to do with pedestrian and what I can't remember what the title of it was.
Did have Maine DOT in the subject. So I was going to ask you, Linda. I assumed it was something you had.
Okay, great. So I wonder if then my email was passed along to a communication between the town manager and Patrick, which is how it should go anyhow. So
Yeah.
perhaps that's manifesting that way, which is, I highly endorse that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got an email today for a doodle thing to see when I can do it. So yeah.
Does it say with John Duke or just?
It doesn't, there's no information.
Right.
It's only for a meeting, so we're surmising.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, do let me know. I might drop in and just be a fly on the wall on that. That would be great. If I'm around. That would be good. Everybody see the Burma Shave signs on Mechanic Street? You got to get out, Helen, to see them. Richard, did you notice them?
Yes, I noticed them and actually I've carefully read them in both directions. Well, maybe carefully.
Yeah. Yep. I think I only saw one comment somewhere on Facebook, probably on Allison's website, about we got to start spending more money, town money, on other messages. If the town is spending message to put up signs to teach people, maybe we should teach them about other things too. I don't know.
You gotta bring some kind of negative. People are so good at that, like connecting, like, can you possibly connect these pedestrian safety signs to an issue that you're really mad at the town about?
Yeah, I think that's all I saw. Other people mentioned it to me and they thought it was kind of cool. So congrats, Anita. And thanks, Allison, for your support on that too.
They're great. I think they could just be bigger next time.
Yeah, they're a little small.
But I haven't heard any people, except for like a little bit like, oh, they probably don't know it's illegal to put signs on the poles. And I get to say, oh, actually, we got permission to do that. And it's been very good. I think it's a model that can be expanded. And thank you so much, Anita, for doing that. It's working out great.
It's great. And Dave was really supportive too. So yeah, he's good too. Again, the next thing I have on the agenda is the Rockport meeting, which is what that means is we're going to formally vote, and there's some kind of procedural thing involved that I've got directions, Diane Hamilton, on how to do it. So we'll meet next month and do it in person. Hopefully all the Rockport people certainly would be there, and all the Camden people as well. Anita, you raise your hand.
I'm curious about how long the Burma Shave signs should be up. Should we take them down when the snow starts to fall?
Yeah, what we said was that we would keep them up until they fell down.
That means that you don't really want to reuse them.
We'll make them again a little bit bigger.
Really?
That's
Okay.
my take.
Okay.
Allison?
We can probably find like if there's a time when you really think they should come down, Anita. I mean, we don't want them, I think it would be damaging to the cause if they end up like blowing around as litter. So I think maybe once we see signs of, wear and tear, like they might fall down, then maybe we would take them all down. But I bet you're going to be really, I would trust your judgment, Anita. Just for you to make the decision, I would think, if you see them starting to look like, this isn't like they're not gonna be reusable after this, you might want to just, one of us could help you take them down. So
Yeah, I think the major thing will be the snow plows hitting heavy snow against them. When they fly, the snow flies off. So that could be the issue. Otherwise, they look really solid. I don't think they're gonna. I've looked at them after the blow, the blow we had and the rain, and they didn't look wobbly at all. They look rock solid. So you did a great job putting them up, Anita.
Just after, regarding next month, you're going to revisit something. I missed that. I'm trying to take notes. Sorry. What you mentioned just after the Burma Shave discussion.
Yeah, what we're meeting on the 1st, and we'll meet in person in Rockport, and it'll be very procedural because we have to adopt something in our bylaws for remote meetings. It's all scripted, and I have that script. Diane Hamilton is advertising the meeting. It's a public input meeting, public something. Linda, it doesn't matter. But the public is welcome to, Anita, could you mute? The public is welcome to participate, as they always are. This is just a little more formal.
Sorry. I wonder if that's what Diane was sending us the doodle for.
No, because it's our normal meeting.
That was explicit?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I told her what date, and she's advertising that date.
Got
Richard, you are the last man.
I haven't
on the
forgotten.
side. Yeah. Well, stop sanding the boat. Stop sanding the boat and get on the street. It only takes a couple of hours.
It's not sanding the boat, it's putting all the things away.
Yeah, so thanks for getting those in. I'll collate them this month and present them back to you, and you guys can proof them and tell me what you think.
What's that?
I'll do that all by the sidewalk surveys. Yeah.
Yeah,
Linda, you owe me a couple more, I think.
I do. I owe you a couple. I mean, I have done the assessments, but I have to fill out the forms. I'll send them to you. But I must say, it's really discouraging. I don't know how Camden is, but Rockport is incredibly discouraging. The disregard for pedestrian safety in this town. And
it's just there's limited amount of funds. But look at Rockville.
No.
Look at old Rockville. Look how great that looks.
It's not a limited amount of funds. It's the encroachment of Route 1. It's the encroachment of the highways at the expense of the sidewalks, and it's pretty inexcusable, really. Because these are neighborhoods, long established neighborhoods where sidewalks existed, and then they've been sort of dismantled by whatever latest project has been underway.
Well, I'll look forward to your comments, and we'll incorporate them, and we'll have a meeting in to present them to the select board.
Oh, really? You're going to do that?
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Sidewalk survey. Ah, the last item. I have nothing else other than this. Helen mentioned, and we had begun to discussing at the last meeting, the idea of maybe some sidewalks. We don't need to have sidewalks on every street that actually might have them now. And then Helen mentioned that winter, summer, or spring street had their sidewalks removed. And then there was discussions possibly of removing them on Main Street. And then the question came up was, wait.
Oh, no,
It was Mechanic Street, Jeff. It wasn't
Mechanic, not Main, mechanic. Sorry.
outer
And
Mechanic, yeah.
no,
Towards
this is,
Bochamp.
yeah, I use that sidewalk 3
Yeah.
times a week.
yeah. So I'm not trying to create any rumors or anything about what sidewalks are being removed. I'm just giving it as an example of, let's say the town said, hey, let's take the sidewalk off Mechanic Street. And what I'm asking is, what can we come up with a process to suggest to the town that would be more open, and not just have the town public works decide that, hey, this sidewalk's crumbling, it's not worth saving, let's take it out. So my question to the group is can we come up with something that would that we could suggest?
It sounds like a good idea. The 2 sidewalks that they've removed, is it Summer Street that comes off of Beauchamp at the end, just before, yeah. That one was done over the very strong protests of the neighbors. And they left the part that's covered over by the bushes, the last 20 feet or so. Lime Rock, they took out. It really wasn't there. I mean, it was, people had been parking on it for years, very narrow, pretty much level with the street, and the street's so narrow. So when they put in the new sidewalk there up to the park, and then they just paved all the way up around, about a month or so ago, was it, Linda? They just took it out, and
Right.
people were driving on it anyway, because it was, as I said, level with the street. And most of the people were walking in the street anyway.
So what happened in both those cases, Summer and Lime Rock, is it just happened?
Yeah,
Is that what we want to say is fine?
no,
Yeah, I don't think that's the right way, because it doesn't give an opportunity for people to voice input.
yeah, I mean, Russell is the next one we probably have to worry about, because it's so narrow as it comes down around that curve. And then you've got the parking space there in front of, I think that's,
So let's not, I'm not asking that we look at each street.
yeah,
I'd like to say, if the town is considering, like here's an example. If the town is considering removing a sidewalk, please have a public input meeting, or what are they called, Allison? Is that what it's called,
Charrette?
public input?
I mean, it
No,
can be
not a
called
charrette.
It can be called a public hearing if you want it to be actually serious, but
No, but how do you do it? Like, we're going to talk about this and you want the public to come and talk about it at a select board meeting.
we put it on the agenda.
And that's it. But
On the agenda, or we've been calling it the very, very nice model we have that's worked so well with the dams that people love is community conversations or listening sessions or.
oh, okay. Yeah.
But the other thing is that when what we've had is the problem in Camden, as you know, is sometimes when they pave roads, that also just happens, and there should be sidewalks considered, like the adding of a sidewalk should be considered. And then you know, how many times have we gotten upset seeing something paved in Camden and said, you promised that next time you pave Rawson Avenue, we would consider a sidewalk. And they say, oh, well, yeah, it just the stars and the whatever, sunshine didn't align.
Yeah,
Is
that's
there,
right. That's true too. So again, this idea of a conversation, a public conversation, and have at least 2 or 3 months notice before the action actually occurs. And then I think should be sort of like a budget committee thing. You know, the budget committee recommends this, the pathways committee recommends not removing it, or yes, removing it. And that we should be notified also, as well as the public, or we can just participate in the public. Linda?
yeah, I think that there's a lot of interests at play right now. And if we're just talking about Rockport, it doesn't seem to be really cohesive between the people who are living in a neighborhood and then whatever the plans are. But I'm not in the village, so I'm not involved. You know, if the town does notify anybody in the village about sidewalks, but you know, I go back to the shared streets, and I go back to the, you know, why do we even have the sidewalks? And you know, the ladies aren't wearing their skirts anymore and pulling them up out of the mud, and it's not horses pulling through the street. So in some of these streets, we don't need the sidewalks. However, the conversation should happen at the front end. And I don't know how you get on board with that, because here comes budget season right now. So maybe this is something that, if whatever this meeting is about, this mystery meeting in Rockport, maybe the 4 of us just mention it and see if there's if it gains any traction.
I'm not suggesting that it's just for Rockport. I'm suggesting for both towns.
But Camden seems to be installing sidewalks.
That's true, but it doesn't mean that there's not a sidewalk that shouldn't be removed. Meaning the maintenance of it. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense. I'm thinking of one particular sidewalk. I don't even know if it's there anymore. It's the one that connects Mountain Street to McGonagall. It's a tiny little sidewalk that's like, what the heck is it doing there? It's in total disrepair.
And it does, you know, open up money. It does free up money for other things.
Theoretically.
Rid of useless sidewalks.
Mm-hmm. Richard, any ideas? Sorry, Allison.
Oh, I would just maybe also talk to John Duke because sometimes, depending on sort of the direction of things and the goals that are set by staff, I think depending on how in alignment they are with a broader plan, some of this can be adding too many layers of requirements can interfere with the ability to move forward. And it can create resentment and frustration when, you know, because there are, like for Camden, for instance, there are a bunch of places where it's just like, clearly there should be a sidewalk, clearly things should be better here. And as soon as you say, there's going to be a public hearing on whether to do this very unpopular thing for this one property owner who's a real, like, I don't know, it can just, it's a lot of the time, this is staff, people making a decision of like, about whether there's like the political will to do something, and it can actually make it a lot harder for them if, I don't know. So, but sometimes that's sometimes the town is just kind of hell-bent on doing the wrong thing too, or the wrong, you know, making it easier for themselves. And the only way to stop them from doing the wrong thing is to force something. So it can go.
Yeah, it can go either way. No, I hear you, Allison. Maybe it is as simple as meeting with the public works guys and saying, what do you got planned for next year? And it's like, yeah, okay. we'll chat about that too, see if it makes sense, and if we have any input, we'll let you know.
Yeah,
It's pretty simple, just make it person to person. And then if we say, hey, no, we want to protect that sidewalk and we're going to talk to the select board about it, then it just gets escalated, but I don't suspect that'll happen too much.
is there a master plan? Sorry, this is off topic and I'll stop talking in a second. It's not off topic, but I can't find the most recent master plan for pathways for Camden. It seemed like there was, the only one I'm finding says 2007.
Oh, no. There's one, I think it's 2012 or something. It might be 2007. I don't know. It's pretty old.
Can you send, just to make sure that we have the most updated version, but does it identify?
Did you look
like,
at?
on the
Did you-
website, it didn't, it was.
Oh, it didn't?
I mean, I was like maybe 2007, and I feel like I've heard you refer to one that was more recent. And so then I questioned whether I've been looking at the right one. But does it identify places where like there should be, do we have that for both towns? What roads that should be considered for sidewalks? New sidewalks?
Yes. And there's been informal ones as well.
But
Yeah,
maybe
there's
it was
actually a
just-
map. There's a map that shows the infrastructure of ones suggested. We've done that. Yeah.
But it wouldn't hurt to identify on there a couple that are, would be candidates for consideration of removal. That might, in that same plan, maybe.
It wasn't there. Nothing about removal was in there, which is interesting.
But
Linda?
before we go down that road, I think as a committee, we should talk, and not tonight, but talk about the shared streets, the philosophy of that, because that sends a strong message, I think, if we're cohesive.
Can you put that in more context, Linda, to how that makes it in context?
How it makes it in context, it means that the
Yeah.
committee understands and promotes shared streets, or advisory lanes too. So that we come up with an alternative. We're not just saying, oh, get rid of the sidewalk. We're saying the sidewalk doesn't work, and therefore we suggest doing this and reducing the cost of maintaining the road all over. Have a solution as opposed to a
Just removing the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
Just really quick, maybe this is, if you're going to be meeting with DOT, you could gently ask them if they would consider, we've been going over this speed limit thing sometimes in Camden and in all other places anywhere, even on the DOT website where it gives suggested speed limits for depending on the types of activities that are happening. 25 isn't the lowest. And so, but every time I ask about looking at lowering a speed limit in Camden, it's like, oh, well, you have to be careful because they might raise it on you. But maybe on the streets that it's like if a sidewalk is removed, it could be like a 20-mile-per-hour street, or that looking at not having 25 be the absolute dead lowest speed limit would make sense, I think, for a lot of our streets, that it's really 25 is actually would be pretty fast on Pearl Street, for instance, or places where you're having to weave in and out of cars. And maybe that could be sort of like the trade-off that, okay, we're going to share the streets here, but it's no longer going to be, or we don't have to have a sidewalk, but it's no longer going to be appropriate to go 25. And if you get that straight from DOT, whether or not they would, because they set the speed limits. I don't know, there's a lot of blaming that goes along, like, oh, DOT won't let us do that, or anyway, that's just one thought.
Does DOT set the speed limits on town streets?
Yes, and I went through this whole thing recently trying to get to the bottom of this, and because the state law was passed, in like 2009 that said that towns can take over the setting of speed limits for their streets. And there was a whole list of eligible towns, and we were on it, and supposedly a letter went out to all the towns saying this. And so I was like, aha, there's a template, there's this, we can do this. And everybody was like, oh, I don't know. And so we got Randy involved and Dave St. Laurent. And then they talked to DOT, and they said that it was like they had never dealt with this. Like nobody had ever followed through. It's like a law that got passed because people were obviously really annoyed being told that they could never lower the speed limits on their streets. So a law got passed providing an avenue, but then it's like Randy was like, well, you got to be really careful because we might then have to take over all of the, we might have to try every time we give a speeding ticket, that might have to go to court, and it would be done not through the state anymore. It was just like that normal stuff you hear about why things can't change. And I was like, I don't know. The state has a whole template on their website. It's right here. It provides answers to all this. It also says, it's important that you set the speed limits reasonably, and this is how you determine reasonably. And all the criteria, this was for Mechanic Street, would have shown that Mechanic Street probably should have been lower. Anyway, there was this big long thing that ultimately led me to believe that this was a law that got passed that the state decided they wanted to make sure they never had to actually implement, because there's no, I'll send you the link. It was maddening. It was like a dead end.
It's too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful the way they overthink things?
Well, they do it, and because they each try, the town and the state, they try to put things off on each other so that somebody like you or I that just wants to get the answer, it's just this continuous thing of nobody's responsible, and that it all contradicts.
It's called administrative rules. I've seen it in other departments, and it's how the department gets around what the legislature did.
Seemingly, yeah, that sounds about right.
The one thing, and Linda, just following up on the idea of an integrated suggestion. So if we remove sidewalks, we could suggest something formal like a shared street.
Mhm.
I don't know how many of you looked at it, but shared streets imply a lot of traffic calming measures, like really traffic calming measures, so that the parking spaces are really encroaching. And so you have to kind of drive around. I'll show you, I don't know. You got that? Everybody sees that? So that's an existing. And then a shared street would look more like that. Or more like this. So you build out things so that there are bike stands in the passageway and all this stuff. So, and there's an aerial of what it looks like. So the cars have to kind of weave around and slow down. It would be designed so that kids can be out playing in the street.
That looks incredibly dangerous.
Well, the idea is there are a lot of streets in Europe that are like this, or in cities that are very tight, very small, and through traffic just doesn't really go through. It's just for that block of people, and sometimes that works. We and it also may be a time where we don't do that anymore. I don't know. Meaning maybe kids don't play in the street anymore.
No, they do. They play in
like
the
we
street.
used to.
No, they do. They do. And when I think about Mechanic Street, it actually is but I think doing anything like that is artificial. That's not our culture, and we're not urban. We're a rural area that's growing right now, and we also have a ton of cars in the summertime when we have tourists. So it's more, I think it's actually a little bit more like Allison suggested, or it's more painting the roads more like,
Advisory lanes,
huh?
like advisory lanes.
Not the advisory, but what's the one in Camden? Come on, the one that
The
everybody,
Sharrows?
huh?
The Sharrows?
No, the one in Camden with the lines, by Rennie's. What's the,
Oh, the side road.
Advisory lanes, those are called advisory lanes.
It's advisory lanes.
And that was the actual purpose of that was for this very situation with not wanting to put, it was an alternative to putting in a sidewalk.
yeah. And I think it's changing the culture, but it's also, I mean, you change the culture through signals and symbols, and that's definitely what that is. And just because it's foreign doesn't mean it's not going, it's foreign to all the tourists are coming through. They may understand more than we do, which
They may. So I think, Linda, I just did this mental shift. Instead of suggesting shared streets, which is a loaded term, we use advisory
yeah,
streets, advisory lane streets. So if we're going to take out the sidewalk, let's put in advisory lanes.
yeah. And just,
That would be cool.
and I
It
do
doesn't carry
believe-
all that baggage.
Yeah, and it is re-educating the public, whether they, and then they people fuss and fight, and that's what happens. It doesn't matter. It happens every decade for some new reason. So
Mhm.
it's just what people are fussed up about right now, but you got to change it at some point. And not big streets. I'm not talking about that, but start with these smaller ones.
The little ones.
The little ones that don't have a lot of traffic, but that sometimes people can move fast.
They're like a block line. Or a couple blocks long or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else input? Heidi, Richard, thoughts on this? Do you like where it's going? Cool. All right. So what the action item is that somehow we have to get to the towns to say, listen, there are times when a sidewalk might be considered to be taken out, but the Pathways Committee would highly recommend when we do take out a sidewalk that we seriously look at putting in advisory lanes. And then see if we can get that more formalized somehow. I doubt if we can, but maybe I don't know. If we came, Allison, if we came to the Camden Select Board and made that suggestion, would there be, what action could a select board potentially take to endorse that or to say, yeah, that's a good idea? The idea being, when we consider taking out sidewalks, we look at putting in advisory lanes. Would that be a motion or something, or?
I tend to think that might be a better one just for
Memo?
I don't know that the select board is the best one to, that might just be better remember we did that pedestrian safety resolution, and then we were going to do another resolution that was supposed to be, remember some of the other things that we wanted to include in it, that we decided to do as a separate resolution. Maybe we should come back and do that. And it was basically supposed to be, every time town infrastructure is upgraded, that, these are the priorities that have to be considered. And maybe it could be slipped into there with all the rest of it. That pedestrian safety resolution has actually been really helpful legally a few times, because it gave them the authority that they needed to remove some obstructions and things like that. But maybe packaging it into a larger thing would be better, at least for this select board, I think. So we aren't micromanaging Dave too much.
Right. Heidi?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like putting just as much energy into making sure that we're just asking the questions and asking, like you said, what are the scheduled events happening in the next year, and having that as part of our yearly, connections, and making sure that we're talking and asking the questions. To me, that's just as more, if we're asking the questions, they're going to be more apt to connect with us. And so to me, we don't need more rules and having the select board say yay or nay. It's more that we need to take the time to connect with the people, boots on the ground, that are actually doing the work.
Okay. Anything else on that? Any other items? Anybody have any updates? Oh, I did have one other thing. I did reach out to Paul Cartwright. This is lower down. It's the CSD connector. I did invite Paul to our meeting, actually this meeting, and he says that he doesn't really want to come, that he would be happy to answer any questions that anybody has, but he just doesn't have any input. He loves the idea, and he thinks that in order for it to happen, we would need to get the golf course behind it. But other than that, he said, I don't really have anything I can lecture to you guys or anything like that. But if you have any questions, we should submit it to him, those questions.
Can you remind me what the CSD, what that is?
Yeah, it's the idea of connecting Camden, the Camden residential area, to the high school.
But that was a long time ago. And
It was.
I thought on Rockport's priority list, we have a pathway going down Route 1 and out Route 90 at this point. We sort of put aside trying to do that connector from 2001, 20 years ago.
It came up because I think Margot or Heidi, I think it was Margot, mentioned that there's a sort of a master plan effort going on in Rockport, or the school district. That's what it was, with the school district, and they're trying to come up with a sort of a big picture master plan. And Margot said she is somehow participating in that she will put CSD, a connector to Camden, pedestrian bikeway connector, back on that table. And then I suggested that maybe we should get some background on that, so we better understand what hurdles we have to overcome that historically came up. And the major one that Paul mentioned was the golf course being resistant to the idea, because the key property sort of right in the middle of a way to do that would be the golf course, or unless you use Route 1 or you use, I don't know what's called, Simonton Road, whatever that road's called.
Well, it was going to come down Park Street, and but then property owners along Park Street said no.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So anyway, so Paul said that he, we should more like have our conversation and then shoot the questions to him. So I'll put that at the, if the group wants to talk about it now, we can talk about the concept, or we can table it. Allison, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, the documents that forms the Pathways Committee to begin with, and I think that are still, I don't think that's ever gone away. These two charges that were given to the Pathways Committee were the connector trail between the middle school to the high school and the Jacobs Quarry Trail. And so
That wasn't in the original charter. It was Union Street.
Union Street came after there was some problems with the other, well, there was back and forth, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's all in there and it never went away as like the major reason that the Pathways Committee existed. And when you look at the reasons why some of this stuff failed before, it was just a small amount of political courage from a few people. They just got really, really far with it, shockingly far with it. And to give it up, I don't know, it seems like there were even plans done, and I heard it Mary Spring was a
Another one.
problem too, but we've been talking a lot about it just behind the scenes a little bit for Midco Solid Waste, where the
Well, that's
quarry
the
trail,
Jacobs.
that's the quarry trail.
That's the
I'm
Yeah.
going to meet with Paul Gibbons on Friday and talk a little bit more about that. But anyway, I think I was pushing a little bit too for this to be brought back up after what happened partially is I read all of the Old Village Soup and Linda Clancy's articles too about in order to write the thing about you and Anita. And I just couldn't believe I just couldn't believe how much progress had been made before and how it was abandoned, and it feels like we could overcome that now.
Heidi, did you want to say something? Heidi? No? Okay. I know you have to go here, so.
If
Linda?
if it's in our master plan right now, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, Allison, and I am behind it if it seemed easier at this point, but if it's in our master plan to go down Route 1, continue the Maritime to the intersection of Route 90 and then have a pathway out Route 90, to me, that seems so practical at this point in time when we have the others, when we have RES or CRESS, then trying to get permission from different property owners who might be still resistant to, other than coming through the CMP power line, but then you still have to come over into my neighborhood, because the CMP line goes into, it's people's backyards. And I can only imagine the resistance from people there to having a pathway underneath. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, that's fair if we're going to make progress on the other thing. Is there hope for Route where?
I would hope so. It seems so practical. It seems if we have a pathway coming to Maritime, why wouldn't we continue that to the intersection of Route 90, hang a right and have a pathway out Route 90 to whatever's, if the sewer is going out there and you have 3 schools out that way, and you have the Marge Jones recreation field, and then you have West
MRC.
Rockport. It just seems so silly that we're not putting something on those 2 major DOT, especially with the infrastructure bill that just got passed.
Yeah.
It's why we're working hard to get the Route 90 thing going, because if Route 90 gets put in, then it's sort of like, hey, it ends, this other route ends at Maritime. If we just do this half a mile, the 2 will be connected. Well, let's do that.
It doesn't seem like you necessarily need to do sewer in order for, I'd be hesitant to tie that 100% to the sewer thing.
Well, that was John's suggestion, that if there's momentum towards putting a sewer out in Route 90, then we could piggyback on that project more easily than saying, okay, we're going to do a pathways, because some of the funding could possibly be leveraged for slipping a pathway in.
I just know too much about the Rockport sewer situation to feel
Oh, right, you've got your battles.
I just can't believe that they are already losing so much money. Those rates are just crazy high. I don't understand why they wouldn't just try to work with us a little bit. It seems like they want to figure out if they can build their own thing, which it feels like it's going to take a while for them to figure out. That's going to be really expensive. And then every time they've invested in expanding the system, they've ended up with higher rates for their customers, so. I don't know, but I just wanted to have them fast. It seems like what you just said, Linda, is really like, feels like we should be able to accomplish that. So,
Seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it? But then we get into,
yeah, because it's really not that far. And there's all this money available now. We just submitted something for John Street. For a sidewalk and bike lanes and sewer. But anyway, yeah, maybe you're right, but that's more, we should be pushing harder for that now rather than the power line stuff.
That's a good point, Linda.
I've got another meeting here at 7, so I've got to jump off, but
Yeah.
nice to see everybody.
Any other items? Anybody?
nope,
Are we done?
yep.
All right. We'll see you on the 1st.
Okay.
All
Thank-
right.
See you guys.
Linda, get
Night,
me the rest of
everybody.
that stuff, and Richard, you get me the rest of that. You get me your stuff, and yeah, right. It's gonna get cold, Richard. You're not gonna like it.
Good night, all.
Good night, Allison. Thank you.
Come on, there we